Good morning. We got to work hard this morning to get our heads out of the final four, to get back to campus and finish up this term. I welcome you on behalf of the Women's Philanthropy Board. I'm June Hinton. I'm Dean of the College of Human Sciences, and it is my pleasure to open this spring symposium. It's always a highlight of the year for us. The Women's Philanthropy Board, of course, is the flagship division of the Carey Center for the Advancement of Philanthropy and Nonprofit Studies in our college. And we focus on teaching money management, philanthropy, engagement, and nonprofit leadership. The cornerstone of WPB and its mission is to empower individuals to make a difference in whatever capacity that they are working, and to be educated, confidential financial decision makers and donors. WPB provides educational programming that encourage financial sustainability, philanthropic engagement, and nonprofit leadership. Since its inception, and it seems like yesterday to many of us, 2002 brought together a very small group of women here in Auburn, and WPB was launched from that small group of donors. Since that time, we have had wonderful programs, wonderful speakers, and today is no different. We have had 110 programs featuring more than 210 professionals in the fields of wealth management, philanthropy, and nonprofit leadership. For this morning's symposium, we are very excited to feature Olivia Hales and Terry Lovelace. Olivia will be sharing tips and techniques in the science of negotiating, an especially important topic for all of us today, and especially for young women. And Terry will be introducing us to a leading-edge innovation in philanthropy and finance known as social impact investing. After the luncheon, which we are excited about, you are invited to join Terry from 2 to 3 o'clock for a more in-depth discussion of how social impact investing could be brought to Auburn and all of Alabama, and how that can help build prosperous and vibrant communities. An important part of WPB, of course, in addition to providing educational programming and getting people together to network and inspiring the next generation of philanthropists, is giving back to the College of Human Sciences. Over the span of years since 2002, we have given a total of $771,000, which we're very proud of this philanthropic footprint. And this year, we're contributing $70,000 to that. So for this support, to all of you who have been such an important part of WPB and the Phils, our business partners, our corporate partners, we thank you for all of your support. So again, welcome to this year's annual symposium and luncheon, and please welcome to the stage WPB President Des Spike, who will introduce our first speaker. Yes.
Good morning. As Dr. Hinton said, I'm Des Spike, and I've had the opportunity to serve as president of the Women's Philanthropy Board for the last 2 years, and I've been involved for more than a decade. And as she also said, we've had 110 educational programs featuring 200 unique speakers. And today we're thrilled to continue that tradition with our symposium and luncheon speakers. When you think of the word negotiation, does it make you a little uneasy? I know it does me. I hate asking people for anything. I'd rather buy it myself. That's what I did when my kids were fundraising. If they had to sell something, I'll buy it all. I'm not asking anyone. Do you worry that you may be asking too much or too little? Maybe you've never had to negotiate a high-stakes deal, but whether you realize it or not, as you go through your daily activities, you are negotiating for the world around you, participating in a job interview, purchasing a car, deciding who should go first in line, or navigating through a dinner party, you negotiate through verbal and nonverbal cues. Today we're excited to have Olivia Hales teach us more about the science of negotiating. Olivia is Southern Division Retirement Director with Janice Henderson's Defined Contribution and Wealth Advisor Services team based in Atlanta, Georgia. In this role, she consults with financial advisors, platform partners, and Janice Henderson directors to navigate today's complex retirement landscape, which thankfully I'm getting really near that. Olivia was previously an associate director with Janice Henderson's internal sales team, where she focused on investment product sales and support through intermediaries such as brokerage firms, financial advisors, brokers, banks, and insurance companies. Olivia received her bachelor's degree in international business from the University of Denver. I believe she's got some Auburn women in her family. I know her mother's here with her. She's an Auburn grad. So let's welcome Olivia to the stage with a big war eagle.
All right, good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. I do have my lovely mother in the room with me, no pressure, who is an Auburn grad. So thank you for being here. And I will say that was a very tear-breaker game that I was watching. Always pulling for the SEC, even though I was a graduate from the University of Denver. Okay, so while I get this set up here, let's start with taking you back to when I graduated from college. As she said, I was an international business major from the University of Denver. I had a job lined up. I was ready to go for that. One day before graduation, I received a phone call. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we're sorry, Ms. Hales, we're no longer available to extend an offer to you. So here I am, very excited to graduate from the University of Denver, expecting a very great high-paying job for my 4 years there. And now all of a sudden I have no job. So I went back to my LinkedIn inbox. Who has reached out? Why have they reached out? What can I do? How do I get there? And within a few weeks, I had a job offer from Janus Capital Group. The salary wasn't quite what I was hoping for. Brought me back down to earth a little bit. But what did I do? I accepted with flying colors. I didn't even honestly look at what the salary amount was. I said yes. Thank you, because at the time and the circumstances, I was happy to have a job. I was thankful to just be working for a good company and able to live in Denver, Colorado, where I was at the time. What I didn't know at this time was that I was actually putting myself at risk of losing over $500,000 of accumulated wealth in my career. So, today, we are going to explore this phenomenon. And we're going to ask ourselves the question, why is it as women do we often find ourselves not negotiating as often as our male counterparts? And when we do negotiate, why aren't we walking away with everything that we wanted, or at least almost everything that we wanted from that? Okay, so let's go back to this phenomenon that I mentioned earlier, okay? We're leveraging several subject matter experts today that I will mention for you in a bit. But studies show that if I, Olivia Hales, and let's just say for the sake of names, Jim, have the same credentials, we both have MBAs from the same institutions, we get offered the same job. I get offered a job starting at a $50,000 salary. Jim gets offered the job at $55,000. Now, why is that? Because Jim asked for more. I accepted the flying colors because I was just excited to be there. Now, those are hypothetical numbers, but that's just to show you what happens if now my floorboard is $50,000 versus Jim is $55,000. Think about merit bonuses. Think about annual increases, variable bonuses. Where does that put me over the span of my career? See what I'm saying? Everyone on track with me there? So, what can we do about this? Well, today we're going to talk about women in negotiation today. Where do we stand? And I'm going to be generalizing a little bit, okay? So be okay with that with me, if that's okay. We are generalizing, a bit today, okay? So we're going to discuss where we find ourselves. Then we'll be going into discovering what your specific bargaining technique is. And then how you can use that to your advantage as a person and especially as a female. And then if we have time at the end, we'll do a little activity where you can all put your skills into practice. Now, I'm with Janice Henderson Investors. I'm the retirement director. Basically what that means during the day, normal days, I'm meeting with financial advisors and trying to help them grow their business, ultimately selling mutual funds and corporate retirement plans. But a huge part of what I get to do and have the privilege of doing is running our Women in Wealth initiatives for the South and the East. And all that means is that I get to spend a lot of time helping women, both advisors and their clients, learn how to balance. How do we balance financial wellness with our personal wellness so that we can get what we want out of life without having to sacrifice our wealth, our health, and our happiness? So that's definitely a takeaway that I want you to take with you today is how do we learn to get what we want without sacrificing these things that we so often sacrifice? Linda Babcock and Sarah Lashermer are two sociologists, economic professors at Carnegie Mellon. They are the subject matter experts that we have leveraged for a lot of content here today. They wrote a book called Women Don't Ask. So I will be referencing a lot of their material, and if you want the name of the book afterwards, please let me know. As goes for our bargaining techniques, we'll move into some research from Dr. Richard Schell of the Wharton School of Business and really be able to say, okay, what's my bargaining technique? How do I put that into practice to really make sure that I get what I want? Okay, so we're going to revisit this one again. How many of you associate negotiation with some kind of negative connotation? Already said, right? I know I do. Today, I need for you to agree with me. Okay, everybody needs to be on the same page that we're all willing to shift our mindset a little bit and no longer see negotiation as something that's an intimidating argument, but more of a conversation where we have the opportunity to get something that we want for ourselves. Can everybody do that with me? Yes. We're all going to shift our mindsets here. Okay. So why is negotiating so important for women? I think there are endless reasons here, but some that are especially relevant because of the facts that we now face. Women are participating more and more in the workplace than they ever have before. And they're actually growing faster than men are in the workplace, in addition to more higher education graduates of females. Okay, this is a big number. We are becoming the primary breadwinners of the household, on track to be about 50% of workers in this country. Now, there's also things like a high divorce rate. There's also record women having children on their own these days. Probably attributes to this, right? But nearly 50% of us are now the primary breadwinners of the house. But now let's look to this next statistic here. There are still systematic issues that exist in the workplace. For every dollar that a man gets, a woman receives 82 cents on average. So there is still a pay gap that exists. Next statistic here. 85% is an alarming number for us to be intimidated or fear negotiation. Now, this is in reference to just having a new job, but I would say this is transferable to many parts of your life. This is not just for a new job. We said it already, negotiations tend to have a negative connotation and be intimidating, right? But what we can see in this whole path here, and we'll get to the bottom statistic because this is the most alarming, I think, on the slide. But what does it mean? We're taking on more responsibility financially. And this is not just in the workplace. Okay, 90% of us in this room will at some point be in charge of the directive of our household finances. That's not just balancing a checkbook. That's the long-term investment decisions and the directive of estates. That's a big number, 90% of us. We have to be prepared for that. We have to have the confidence to take on that role. And then finally, this last statistic here, as of 2017, and I think as of this year, I just looked up the numbers for 2018, it was only up a couple of percentage points. Just over 2% of venture capital dollars being given to female-founded businesses. I don't even think that needs an explanation of why that's an issue and why we need to step up to the table and start asking for what we want. When we think about negotiations and approaching negotiations, this is where I talked about those stereotypes, these society norms that we know because of how we were raised, things that we've always seen and observed. So when we think about approaching negotiation, and maybe some of the words that may get tagged to you as a female, let's go through these, okay? So men, assertive, dominant, competitive, I would say, decisive. The last one here, self-oriented. Now let's look at women and the assumptions of us when we enter into a negotiation. Warm and friendly, expressive, nurturing, others-oriented. Now, the two that I want to focus on the most are the last two. Self-oriented, others-oriented. There are probably a lot of you in this room that think, no, I'm good at negotiating. I've gotten through my entire career because I am good at negotiating. And I'd say that to myself. I think I've been on a fast track because of my ability to ask why and get in someone's face, frankly. But when you think about this and you break it down, how often is it that we are negotiating on behalf of ourselves and our own interest versus the interest of something we're representing? Maybe it's you're negotiating well on behalf of your children. Maybe it's you negotiating well on behalf of your constituents. In whatever way they are. But how often are you stepping up and saying, no, this is for me, and this is why? Food for thought. Food for thought there. Okay, so we know this, and that's all about, this is probably our assumed approaches of how we are. I think we can use this to our advantage, and we'll get to that when we walk through some of the next slides. Here's what we have to overcome together. This is a study that Linda and Sarah did of women of all walks of life. Okay, so 22-year-olds all the way to about 65, 75. And what they found in this group of women, a lot of executives, a lot of people who have made it to the top, you would say, on why they didn't either get there faster or never got there at all. These are some quotes from them. I know I can relate to some of these quotes. Well, I'm stuck with the circumstances, that's just how it is. That's okay. We'll just keep going. I'm just happy to have a good job. I'm just happy to work for a company that has great benefits because I can take care of my family. Is this going to bruise my reputation? Women tend to think about the other person and the impact that their questions will have on the relationship when entering into a negotiation way more than men. Men tend to think, what can I get out of this and how can I do it as fast as possible? Whereas we think, if I say this, is that going to offend this, or is that going to tarnish the relationship that I have already established and worked so hard to establish with this person? Now, going back to the study that Sarah and Linda did of these women's all walks of life, and this is where history will back up their study results. But they found that when it came to men and women and their propensity to have an impact on their own circumstances with opportunities, that men tended to think that, yes, I have control of everything that can happen to me. Whereas women actually came out on the other end saying that external forces impact much of what they can or can't do. Now, I think that's something we can do, a walk through history and say, okay, well, we didn't have the right to vote. We didn't have the right to own property. We didn't have the right to do this. It's been a growing lifestyle. But you can see it's built into the societal norm that we don't even realize we're walking to the table with, that we have to get over. Now, here's the big thing. We can get over this inner voice assumptions. We have to acknowledge them, and then we move on from them. So what do we do differently? First of all, we consider the consequences of not negotiating. We look back to that example that I told you at the beginning, $650,000 to $1 million of accumulated wealth. That's not even putting compounding growth on top of that. That's just dollars and paycheck that I could have been missing out on because I didn't ask for more. Because I was starting at $5,000 less than a male counterpart. Because if you look at that over a 40-year-long career, that's what it adds up to. I think we've got 2% inflation accounted for in there. But that's it, no compounding growth. That's a crazy number. I mean, that's a retirement nest egg in itself. That's a lot of comfort and confidence that you're missing out on there, right? So stepping up to negotiate and asking even when you don't realize you can negotiate. I think that was something that is part of this. It's not, did I properly negotiate? Did you miss an opportunity to negotiate on something that you didn't even know you could negotiate? This is a big thing we miss out on just because we don't ask why. Second, know what you want and ask for it. This is where I think we often fall to not knowing how to quantify and put an actual price tag on the work that we do. Well, if someone says, well, how much more do you want? What do you use in your head as that calculation to put onto paper? Well, this is what I think I'm worth. That's really hard for us to do as women. And I think it's especially hard for us to do because what have we done over time? We do a lot of things that are considered unpaid labor because it's in our nature and because we care for others. Right? Whether it's a caretaker of children, whether it's a caretaker of an elder parent. We clean the house because it makes everyone feel good and that's the way we want it. But there's all these different things of kind of unpaid labor that we just do in life because that's how we are and that's how we're built. So when someone asks us to put a price tag or quantify the value of the work that we do, that can be pretty difficult for us to do, right? Finally here, we're going to go over your specific negotiation style so that you can learn how to leverage that to get what you want. So how can you stay true to yourself but still get what it is that you want out of life? So the question I'll ask you as we move into this next section here is, for you personally, up to this point in your life, what is it that you do specifically to get the things that you want out of life? What is it? Do you even have a process? Can you answer that question? So, what negotiations have you faced? Anyone want to share one quickly? Anyone done some of these three? You just bought a new car. Did you negotiate? Did you get what you wanted? That's what I like. Okay. How long were you there?
Well, maybe 2 or 3 hours to buy a car, okay?
Yeah.
About an hour to my way.
There we go. When I bought my first car, I had several different dealerships that I had gone to and gotten estimates. I got the Kelley Blue Book value going with me. I've got that in a folder. And then I had 4 different car dealership estimates for a trade-in value. And I decided, okay, I'm going to push the limit here, and I'm going to go to the dealership where I'm on the verge of being able to afford this car. But there's a car that I really want, certified pre-owned, someone just brought it in, 20,000 miles on it, $20,000 off sticker price. This is what I'm going to see what we can do here. So I go in, and he disappears, as to the magic man in the back room, or what we can make happen when we can. Okay, so he disappears on me, comes back. I'm thinking, I wonder what he's going to come at me with. He came at me with an estimate for trade-in value that was $5,500 less than any of the estimates I had in my folder. So to me, I was like, you just slapped me in the face without knowing you slapped me in the face. Thank you for that. Thank you, no deal. Have a good night. This was fun. Really enjoyed the test drive. I'm out. Well, wait. Where are you going? We're not done here. Oh, we're not? Well, that's not a deal for me. Well, what is it that you were looking for? Well, I slapped all 4 of the estimates down in front of him and said, well, which one do you want to go with? I prefer this one on the higher end. So then he disappears again back to his little mystery man and comes back out and still gives me something that's $2,500 less than any of the estimates I had in my folder. At this point, I'm about to pick up my folder and slap him in the face with it because that's just bad sales. So I did the same thing. I got up and walked out. And then finally, I got what I wanted at the 3rd time. So I was there for about 3.5, 4 hours. So it took me about 2 hours to get what I wanted. But I was not moving until I did. And it was a process. But I think as soon as I walked in, it was like, oh, she went to the University of Denver and she's buying a new car and she has no idea what she's going to get herself into here. I had already done my Kelley Blue Book. I called USAA for loan rates and what price point I should be looking at, especially in the state of Colorado, because insurance is higher because of hail damage and all the different storms. So I had done all of this homework and prepared, and he had no idea. So it ended up being a lot of fun for me, but this is where people can get us, right? If you're going to be a good negotiator, if you're going to be successful, one thing you have to start as your foundation of every single thing is making sure that you are showing up as your authentic self. This is one of Richard Shell's, I guess, ride or die, live or die. If you don't show up as yourself and you're sacrificing pieces of you in the process of a negotiation, it will come back to bite you in some way. So this is Richard Shell's foundation. Make sure that in whatever you're doing, you're showing up as your authentic self. So, we're going to have a little fun now. We're going to discover your bargaining style. Hopefully all of you got notebooks when you walked in, or pens and workbooks. You're going to turn to page 6, I believe it is. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You've got a series of 30 questions. You are going to go through these 30 questions with very impulsive answers. Okay, so you're going to look at E and D and you're going to think, yes, I'm more E, not D, so write E. So just your impulse reactions, this should not take more than 5 minutes, but your impulse reactions of what you are, and then I need for you to total your scores, A, B, C, and D, and then we can check back in with each other in a few minutes. Okay, if you're one of the fast ones and you get done, you can flip over to the next page and grid out your results.
There's a very chance I can get you back on the phone. I have some pictures that just came in on the flash drive.
I'm right back in. Hey, Jake. Jake, the presentation came off the screen. What should I do? I said the presentation came off the screen. It's going in and out. What should I do? She's not getting stuff.
All right, so we're gonna jump back into it for the sake of time. How many, do we have any triangle grids? No? All right, how about my competitors out there? Any competitors? Couple of you? Okay. Collaborators?
What that's about? She keeps following stuff.
You got the thing.
She was following stuff.
Compromisers? Okay. Some of us still not done. I think we're still working. Avoiding?
I'm gonna go work on these pictures.
Okay.
I'll go back through this.
And accommodate. Okay. So actually a really good mix
If it happens
between
again, just head down there
results
and
here.
just-
Not as many competitors, but that's not a surprise. And I typically do this in front of a lot of financial advisors, which tend to be majority male. And it's, I bet you can guess which one to get. Yeah, we got a lot of competitors in the room, which just makes it more fun for me. I will tell you, I have taken this, I've been with Janice Henderson for 7 years, and I have taken this probably twice a year, every time I've been every year I've been at the firm. And depending on what my role is, my style actually has shifted. So when I first started in the workplace, I was a competitor extraordinaire. I was 90% competitor. Then I moved into more of a sales support role where I was on a sales desk with 48 guys and I was one of 3 females. I actually became an avoider. And now where I am, I'm an accommodator. So I've actually seen this shift based on what my role and responsibility was. Now, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I really don't know how to properly analyze that, but I think it's important to note it. To say, okay, well, if I was an avoider, why was that? I think it was because I wanted to keep my head down and just do a good job and not get into the boys' club of the sales desk. When I was a competitor, I think it was, I'm going to do everything and anything I can to get out of this role that I got hired for because this is not what I want to be doing with my life. So I was as competitive as I could possibly be. Get me out of there. I want on to the next thing. Right? And this is just your dominant negotiation. So this doesn't mean that you can't adapt, as we'll get into. This just means, okay, where am I falling? So let's have some fun and look at this. The competitors. This is that my way or the highway. I want it done. I'm walking into a negotiation to get this done, and that's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everybody know these people? Some of you live with these people? Or work for these people? Yes. Okay. So, sportsman loves negotiation game, likes to win. We know this. Number 2, collaborator. Looks for the best solution. Likes the group environment. Let's get a little bit of what I want, a little bit of what you want, and we'll all be happy and we can go home. Compromiser. These are the people that are seen publicly as reasonable. I would say don't really want to get into the fluffy details, but definitely want to talk about what we're here for. Okay, any of you know these people? These are some people too that if you put an idea out there and they've got something else to do, a call in 30 minutes, they're going to say, yeah, that works for me, cool. On to the next thing. Many of you have probably done that. I'm guilty of that. Our avoiders. How many of you were avoiders again? That's a decent amount of you in the room. Now, I don't know if this is where you are in your life, if this will change, but it's not a bad thing. This is where we're just avoiding the uncomfortable topics Because we don't want to have them. We don't want to get into it. That doesn't mean we don't have opinions about it. But it's easier for us not to go there and to listen to the group. Accommodator. These are our problem solvers. These are people that come to the table knowing exactly what they want, and then they get really creative listening to what other people want to figure out what's the best decision to put out there. Okay, so this is that relationship. I want to talk. I want to get to know everything that you want out of this, and then I'm going to do the creativity on the backside to figure out how we can make this best work for everybody. This is your Chick-fil-A workers. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Okay, so now you know your different style. What I want you to think of is, now that you know your style, what is the style of the people that you deal with most often in your day? Whether it's in a personal relationship, whether it's in the workplace, a church group, a charity group. What are the styles of the people that you deal with most often? And how can we learn to adjust based on who we're dealing with? If I'm walking into a meeting with a competitor, I'm not going to walk in empty-handed. I'm going to walk in with my 4 car estimates and put them down on paper saying, this is fun and games and all, but I'm not paying your $5,000 below price for my trailer, and here's why. Okay, so here's our 4 stages of negotiation. So understanding your style at the base of all of these as we go through these, okay? Preparation. And these go in order of how much time you should be spending. Preparation is where you should be spending your most amount of time. And then it gets a little bit less as we move into this information exchange, and a little bit less as you bargain. And then finally, the commitment should be easy at that point and quick. All right, so what are some things that we need to know as we prepare? This is where we fall as women a lot, but we're really good at it. So I'm kind of, anybody? What was most important in this column? Jonathan, anyone? What's most important? What is most important to you? Yes, I kind of said it that way. But what is most important to you? This is being able to walk up and say that, or know exactly what you're going to say here. And then, what is most important to them? Obviously, you're taking bargaining styles into account. Number 2, information exchange. Rapport building, validating interest, understanding perceptions that someone may have of you walking into the room, and maybe understanding your perceptions of someone else. Bargaining. This is where we're doing a lot of that pivoting, understanding what's being said, hearing that, and then adjusting so that we're not losing sight of what we want. I would say bargaining is where we tend to start to maybe give up some things that we want. And then commitment. Committing to what you're having, making sure that your why is known at this point. Don't ever commit to something if your why hasn't been expressed. Okay, key success factors here. We'll go through each of these individually a little bit later. Slow down. Don't make assumptions. Establish your rapport. Look for the bigger picture. This isn't that short-term fix. This is that long-term solution. And be smart about how you open and show yourself when you enter into a negotiation. Okay, so I want to play a little game here. I need a couple volunteers. I know y'all said you would help me, right? All right, so I have a couple of oranges here, as you can see. And there's napkins in here, so we'll be okay. All right, y'all 3 will you come up? And then I need one more. I need a 4th. We're gonna have 2 pairs here. Ellen, you can come help me too. How about that? Okay. So you 2 pair up, and then you 2 pair up. There's that. Okay, thank you. All right, just stand there for me real quick. Let me show you. Sorry. Okay, so I want you to have two quick offside conversations while I'll explain to everyone what's going on about how you're going to divide this orange between the two of you, okay? There's only one left at the store, and you're both doing things that you need an orange for and you cannot get done unless you have an orange, okay? That's the stage of where we are today. Now, between the two of you, you have to figure out how you can both get what you want without sacrificing that, okay? So I'm going to give you each a couple minutes to talk amongst yourselves as we talk about some things up here, and then we're going to come back and check in with you and find out what you did. So think about your bargaining style. Okay, go. Give you a few minutes here. Okay, so this isn't on the spot negotiation, so obviously not as relevant for real life. But since they just learned their styles and techniques, let's see if there's anything that we can have them actually pull from that when dividing this case. Quick negotiation here. Let's see how they do this. You have your solution? You don't have to physically do the solution. You can tell us. You don't have to yeah, you can just tell us. Okay, let's start here. What are you going to do?
Okay, so she needs the zest from the orange, and I need the juice from the orange.
So we decided since the zest only comes from the outside, then I use the orange first, get what I need, and then I get to her what she needs.
Okay. And you too.
We are in the same boat. I need the juice and she needs the zest, so we thought about possibly peeling the orange as well as we could, and then I could take the inside of it and the juice and the taste.
Okay, so you're going to peel it completely, and then you two can leave with separate components, and then you are going to go one and then say, here's what I have, and she can use the rest. Okay. Now, in your process of doing this, did you just flat out tell the other person what you needed? Or did you poke around to find out what it is that you're looking for?
I just asked her what she needed.
Okay?
And
Okay.
I told her this.
Okay. So you just put it out there.
I told her what I needed.
Ellen's like, this is what I need. How do I get it? I like that. Okay.
I did the same.
And you did the same. Okay. So I've done this with a group of guys ahead of time with just my friends to see. And guess what they do 9 times out of 10? They go, oh, you need this, I need this? Cool. 50-50. Right? So, in this situation, right, they were put on the spot, it's a little bit different, but they just outright said, 2 women, here's what I want, here's what you want, let's make this happen. Most people tend to jump to this 50-50 conclusion of, let's just cut this in half. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Thanks. Hopefully you guys realize you're negotiating. And wait, don't leave the table. Okay, so each of you get a bag of my, so of course since this is a women's charity board, I have to promote my charity that I'm on the board of. And if any of you know Ben Higgins and The Bachelor, this is Ben's Coffee, Generous Coffee Company. We are Canadian Coke United is our charity. We make coffee with generous coffee from third world countries, and then our profits go back into serve as the operating budget for our charity. So I would have been remiss if I hadn't been there. So thank you for your help. I appreciate it and enjoyed the coffee. Okay, so let's get back down into our processing of negotiating. First and foremost, slowing down. Anytime that we're approaching a negotiation, slowing down. Not necessarily jumping the gun to say, this is what I need, this is what I want, how do I get it? But really making sure that you're slowing down in the process of your delivery. Don't make assumptions. The biggest thing I would say here is don't assume that the person on the other side of the negotiation, even if it's coming to a stop sign. I mean, this doesn't have to be a high-stake negotiation. We have negotiations every single day throughout our lives. Don't assume that the person on the other side of it is 100% against you or in like conflict of what you want. We do that a lot, and we don't need to do that because there's a lot of things that people don't realize they want and or need until we get into it. And then their interest here. This is where women can really, really, really thrive because this is where we're compassionate, where we can use our nurturing spirit. and be kind to others. So I think this is something of understanding my interest, their interest. Don't ever show up without knowing what you want and what you need, and then using our adjectives that we saw on that page to express that appropriately. Establishing rapport. So this is creating rapport and building trust. There are lots of studies out there that show us when people are making a decision of who they're going to go with, in terms of, let's say, a business decision, if I'm choosing in my business, in my world, if I'm an investment committee member and I'm choosing a record keeper that we're going to use for the 401k plan, studies show that the facts only matter for 15% of my decision. 85% of the decision I'm going to make that day is whether or not I trust you and like you. That's a pretty big number. But here's my warning for females, and what we tend to do is we tend to show up and hope that our credentials will show up as a part of the relationship building process. On the reverse of that, men tend to sit down and say, I am a CFA, I am with this firm, I am that, I am this, I am that, and put their credentials out on the table to immediately establish them. Whereas we're more comfortable saying, well, I do this, and I'd like to get to know you, and let's build the relationship and build trust. And almost assuming that the person on the other side of the conversation knows why we're there. We don't sometimes, so it's important that we build a relationship and build rapport, but it's also important that we do state what it is that we want and what we're looking to get out of that, at the same time not falling into that trap of, well, they're going to get my credentials out of getting to know me over this conversation. Okay, looking for the bigger piece of the pie. This is where I think we differentiate and we have an advantage as well. Because what do we tend to do as women? We're always thinking about others first. How can I take care of others? How can I take care of this situation that will affect all of these people? And that typically correlates to a long time horizon. How can I take care of my kids' college education? What can I do to make sure that I have enough money to maintain a lifestyle in retirement? Right, it's these long-term decisions. I don't want to have to look at my stock account every single day and see it going up and down and up and down. I just want to know that I'm in the right investments and I'm going to be okay at the end of my career, right, or retirement. Now, on the reverse of that, some people we negotiate tend to think, well, this can fix it today, let's do this. How many of you in the workplace or in anything in your life work with people that want the quickest, like just fast solution? And then you have to put a Band-Aid on something. And then what do you have to do? You have to come back and put another Band-Aid on something, and then another Band-Aid. Now you've got a stack of Band-Aids here, instead of something that you could have just put into place that would have been the long-term decision there, right? That would have solved it. Might have been a little bit more expensive up front, but maybe it would have been worth it. This is something I think we're really good at doing. So take advantage of that. So our best practices here. We know that we need to establish our credibility. We do that through the relationship building process. We just don't get caught up in not missing the opportunity to state who we are and why we're there. We know it's about the relationship and making people trust us. And then revealing information increases your credibility. So making sure you're putting different things in that you've done homework on. And then every negotiation here has the potential for a future relationship. I would say keep that in mind, very much so. Okay, so a little personal story, and then I'm going to have some people help me with our case study that we're going to do. So if I can have you help me, and then maybe you three too. We're going to hand these out. They are in a stack for buyer and seller. So everyone sitting next to each other should have different pieces of paper. They are in order right now, so you should just be able to go 1, 2, 1, 2. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And everyone gets one. Okay, so as stated earlier, I work in a male-dominated industry. I represent 17% of females in the job I have. There's only 17% of us are female wholesalers. Well, financial advisors, I know we have a couple in the room, y'all are 18 to 19%. Still a very, very low number of what we represent in the financial industry. If I don't know how to negotiate or what to bring to the table, I will never advance ahead of my peers. And that's just the reality of the world that I live in. So I have to be able to put myself up there and say, what can I do? How can I get what I want? And how can I advance? And I think a lot of that is, and thinking, well, what's the best way that I can get what I want out of this? But also advance myself and not give up a little bit of who I am, right? There's a study that Linda and Sarah did of a bunch of graduate students at Carnegie. And they gave them all the same job, so kind of similar to what I talked about earlier. 7% of the women negotiated their starting salary. 58% of the men negotiated their starting salary. That is a really big discrepancy, right? So all of this that the reason that we're bringing it up is because I think that there are social norms that we need to acknowledge and we need to uncover and not dwell on, but use them to our advantage and understand them so that we can actually, at the end of the day, be sitting at the table and negotiating for the things that we want and the people that we represent. All right. Does everybody have one? Y'all don't have one. We need some two right here. Okay, so I'm going to give you all a few minutes to read your specific. You should have a buyer or a seller role in your hand, and the person next to you should have the opposite of that. So I'd like you to make sure you're sitting next to somebody that has an opposite one if you're not, so that you two can negotiate. What we're doing here is we're putting this into practice a little bit. So someone's going to be the buyer, and someone's going to be the seller. You don't know what each other needs, but you're reading up on that now. And then you're going to find the opposite buyer or seller and figure out what you can come up with. Done reading, find somebody with the opposite intention as you, or role, and start figuring it out. I have a buyer and a seller that is willing to share what their negotiation was like? Anyone? Buyer? Seller? I'm going to call on you in the front row. Yes? Who is the buyer? You're the buyer. And the seller? So let's recap the situation here, right? We've got the 1980 AOC Pacer, okay, that really is barely running on its own and has no value in sitting in someone's driveway. Yet his daughter really needs cash money for college, so she's like, just get $500 please and I'll be happy. Okay, there's a situation here. Now, on the other side, we've got a damaged window, and this is the last year that the model is that window, which then this gentleman can put it in the car and now have a really nice car, which the last car of that year actually sold at an auto show for $15,000 the prior year. So the potential there is quite high. So, what was your outcome here? So you went for 500. That was the extra homework. Okay, so you went for $500 and you got it. And you're going off and you're like, I'm going to the next car show and selling for 17 times, right? Okay, so went with the 500 there. So did you think of any kind of your bargaining styles as you went through this? Or how did you start? Okay, so I'm here for $500 minimum. I'll take it and run. Okay, so you looked at the external. Yep. Okay, you start up and then you can come down. Yeah? Okay. All right, so this is fun, right? But you can start to put correlations between real life examples through this. Okay, how do I open? Do I just throw out there what I want and what I need? Or is there a strategic way for me to ask questions to uncover what the other person wants, so that then I can be strategic about how I'm going to approach this negotiation, right? There's 3 things that we think you should always do. You need to prepare, you need to practice, and then know how to pivot. Knowing how to pivot to make sure that the conversation stays in your realm of what you want, right? So keeping those 3 things in mind. So that was for fun, but it's supposed to get you thinking about, okay, here are the facts. What facts am I even bringing to the table? Or am I just going to take the check and run? Nothing bad about it. It's just different ways of doing business, right? Okay, so taking action. In your workbook, if you take this with you, you do have an action plan that you can use to write out a negotiation preparation. I think most of us have passed that in our lives where we're not going to go through and scribble that, but it is a good tool for you to follow if you need. And I'm going to wrap up with this quote because I think this is kind of a mic drop quote. And the reason why we have integrated Richard Schell's Science of Negotiations with Linda Babcock and Sarah Lashover's work. Because what Linda and Sarah have done with their book, and there's many more out there like it, but I think they have introduced a topic that we need to talk about more. And the first step there is choosing to negotiate as women and choosing to negotiate more often. And then second, develop a comfortable and effective negotiation style. You know your style. So work on that and really, really develop that. Depending on where, it doesn't matter where you are in life, you always have an opportunity to further negotiate. And then finally, overcome your fear, overcome your personal circumstances, and overcome these unconscious self-bias that we live with and these stereotypes that we live with. Overcome that and use that to your advantage. So I'll let you all read this. I'll read it out loud just because I really like it. I am not suggesting that women should soften or ameliorate power, but instead that, by their participations, women can strengthen its appropriate operation. Women can bring power to power by using it when needed, and not using it as a poor substitute for other things like cooperation. With which we often do, unintentionally. So I hope you had some fun. I hope you took away one or two things and that you feel a little bit more empowered walking out here of, I know how to approach the next negotiation, or at least I'm going to think about how I can approach the next one a little bit better next time. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.